There are people who choose to make a positive difference in the world. Our job is to bring you their stories to motivate you to do the same. Join us each week, host John Alexander and Naima Latif, as we bring you the educators, entertainers, elected officials, religious leaders, and community activists whose works are transforming this world. Find out how you can make a difference too. Be inspired. Watch The Media Connection. Thank you for joining us on The Media Connection. I'm your host, Naima Latif, and we're here in front of the national headquarters of the Rainbow Push Coalition. And as always, we find people who've got a story to tell. Now, would you happen to be a black male, average weight, average height? A whole lot of people fit that description, right? Well, it's possible you could end up in a nightmare situation and wonder, how in the world did this happen? There's a system here that's really designed to keep us in slavery. It's the criminal justice system. And there are those who end up trapped in this system and can't be heard because so many of them fit that description: black male, average height, average weight. That could be anybody. Well, today we're going to talk to Mr. Paul Taylor, and he's still trying to wake up from a nightmare. Thanks for talking to us today. Now, can you tell us when it began, when you were picked up, and what it was that you were accused of doing?
It started September the 25th, 2005. I was walking or trotting to Mika, I believe her name was Malik or Mika Smith. I was going to her house. We, usually just talk and, have fun, a beer or whatever. So it would start to rain a little bit. So I was trotting. So as I was trotting, the police pulled in front of me and tried to get me in the car. But they wouldn't explain, like I had no rights. Why am I getting into the car? They would not explain to me why I was getting into the car. So this led into altercation. Once it led into altercation, they beat me with whips, baton whips, like, not the old-fashioned one, but they hit me with batons. They sprayed me where I couldn't see, and they still was beating me with the batons. I couldn't see at all. Then this led to me getting in the car. They finally handcuffed me, and they put me in the car, my hands behind my back, handcuffed. While handcuffed behind my back, they slammed the door on my foot, and I yelled real loud, and I just knew instantly it was broke, because the pain was so excruciating, that I couldn't even bear to take it. So while I complained, I need to go to the hospital, I need to go to the doctor. They said, yeah, here go your doctor, and they raised the window down while I was headed to the police station. So I said, because I was hot too from the heat from the pepper spray, So when they let the window down, that was my medical attention.
So they pepper sprayed you when you protested being put in the car?
Right. They're trying to protest my Fourth Amendment right. Just explain to me what I'm getting it for. Will you fit the description of someone, or, just let me know something. But they pulled over, and instantly, I know to respect the police and their authority, but the way they came at me too disrespectful, so I felt, why should I get in the car of respect? This later led to me going to the police station and refused medical attention in a timely manner, because I didn't get medical attention between a day and a half to 2 days. But while in the police station, I was complaining, and they, I even repeatedly said I had to use the restroom. They had me hogtied. I used the restroom on myself, defecated all over myself.
How many hours were you waiting for them to let you just go to the bathroom?
Probably about a good 4 hours. They finally hosed me down in the basement. They uncuffed me. They kept
that's how they used to do the slaves on the slave ship. You defecate on yourself and they hose you down.
Wow, I didn't. This is some slavery, because it's almost as though I didn't have my walking papers, my free papers. You know what I mean? So not only that, why in the police station and why hosing me down? I'm still handcuffed. They stopped me from being hogtied, because they had to, pull my pants down and everything. They had to pull my pants down and spray me. Why I had my hands behind my back. Later, they finally let me go to the doctor another shift after a day and a half. because I didn't want to go to see the judge. I wanted to go to the hospital. Later, the doctor finally let me know that I did have a fracture in my right foot. So this led to me going to the county. Okay, I went to the county. After coming from the county, I went to what you call a preliminary hearing. During the preliminary hearing, I went October the 3rd. Remember the dates, October the 3rd. And my next schedule was like October the 21st. Well, I was waiting October the 21st. Those 2 days, October the 3rd, October 21st, they said that they was going to indict me the second time I came, the 21st. I said, how could you indict me? I need somebody to talk to. I never talked to an attorney.
Did they ever read your rights or anything?
Well, actually, they was too upset to read me my rights because they in the heat of the moment, they hit me, they sprayed me. They didn't care about rights. They know that they can lie and say that they read me my rights. The rights was none of my rights was important at the time.
So when they demanded that you get in the car and you resisted, then they try to force you. So then that becomes resisting arrest. So then they got a reason to arrest you.
Never charged for resisting arrest. Later, I was charged with 2 residential burglaries. And I said 2 residential burglaries. Later, I found out, which would be later, that it was two apartment buildings. It was one building, but 2 apartments. And two apartments that had been, and the police, they said that they had phones off me. During this time, when I went to court on October the 3rd and October 21st, I couldn't tell this to an attorney because I wasn't consulted. My right was under the chapter 725 of the Illinois Compiled Statute, Act 5, I believe subsection 103 says I have a right to medical treatment, and also I believe 104 says I have a right to a preliminary hearing. And even though I'm not getting a preliminary hearing, I had a right under the 725. I have a right to an attorney. I never spoke on record. Still to this day, I've never had an attorney doing the process of going to the preliminary before the indictment, because I was told that you don't necessarily have to have an attorney if they're going to indict you. But I have a right to consult the attorney to know if they was going to indict me. I didn't know they was going to indict me until I came, and then they finally said it was going to indict me. While in the while in court, trying to go to court, I never really got a chance to talk to the judge because Officer Mills held me back. And the guy that slammed my foot was Paul Lorenz. Officer Paul Lorenz, never forgot him. Paul Lorenz, L-O-R-Z-E-N, like that. Lorenz, something like that. I remember the spelling. So at that time when I went to the preliminary hearing, they said they finally indicted me. And I said, Your Honor, indictment? Did you get my motion? The Honorable Judge Willie Wright stated, what motion? Well, he asked, what motion? I said, my motion to represent myself, because nobody else was representing me. The audience said, oh, you can hear it. It's tension going on. Now it's drum in the courtroom before.
Now all that time you were in lockup
back and forth
until your trial date.
October the 28th, 2005. October 28th, 2005, I was formally indicted. But still to this day, the indictment was defrauded, as we say in law. It's defrauded because the grand jury had the impression of items or whatever that they said that they had off me, which my witness knew that they didn't. They stated that they had items off me, which misled the grand jury for the grand jury to know to even sit me through the process.
So they claim, the officers who picked you up claimed that they recovered these items from you.
That it was off from the
burglary.
Right, from the victims.
Now who was your witness that said that was not true?
Malika, I believe.
The lady that you were going to go see?
AKA Mimi. We call her Mimi. Mika Smith. She just wrote a statement. I wish I could have held this up. I had the paper, and I don't know where I had the paper before. I was going to bring the paper to court.
Well, one of the things I think that's really shocking is that, of course, the denial of medical assistance,
right.
and then not even reading your rights.
Right. It was just to pretty much get that pretty much in off the street, take him through there. If he done it or not, okay, maybe we'll let him go later.
Now, what about your attorney? What about your attorney who eventually represented you?
The first attorneys at 51st Street in Wentworth was Miss Candace Collins. Miss Candace Collins, Candace Collins was one of the ones that withheld my documents that the judge was supposed to see. Cranston let them see and said, this guy knows the law. Mr. Cranston was the 51st clerk. He did not file my motion. He withheld my motion. And the state attorney, DeRose, knows it too. I have documents.
So where did you learn your knowledge of law? Where did you get your information from?
From time of being actually incarcerated. I spent almost about, I say approximately 3 years in a lockup. Pretty much like a federal prison in Florence. I had, from the times I was in my days of doing things, because I wasn't always, squeaky clean. But the point, my knowledge, everybody wanted to get buff and let everybody know they was in jail and brag about it. And they was something to glorify, and they was in shape and they wanted to get the girls or whatever. So is
that a status symbol now? I've been in jail. See, I got buff. And
that's everybody's brainwashed, and the mentality is brainwashed to believe that jail is actually a cool thing in a young youthful way. I mean, people who have knowledge, of course. I'm 48 now. I have the knowledge to know that not only is it ignorant, but I made a lot of mistakes that I regret. But I'm also happy for the mistakes because I realized that God or Allah or whatever you choose to call him, Yahweh or Jehovah God, that he sent me through a testimony or sent me through my knowledge so I can have to educate. So maybe he was making another young Malcolm or another young king out of me to send me through what I've been through.
So you obviously did not commit the burglary because you have a witness.
It could have been proven if the attorney took even a bit of interest, because during the time for pretty much 4 years, like 3 years and 10 months, I had not had a motion to squash the arrest. During the arrest, if people don't know law, if the police pick you up just for a merely suspicion, they literally have to tell you, well, you fit a description of someone, Mr. Taylor, or whatever. We need to hold you in custody. I will be lawfully detained. But unlawfully detained is when you give me no knowledge of your unlawful detaining me. That's where the law is broken and the Constitution is broken.
So you prove that you were mentally competent.
Yes. So he found me fit to represent myself. But I felt as though, I listened to people saying you shouldn't represent yourself. They say only a fool represents himself. But I knew that my previous
public defender?
Yeah, previous public defender and my previous run-in with the law, they have sold me out. Told me nothing about the law until I did get my knowledge, as I did, when I say I was incarcerated. Once I got my knowledge, once I got my knowledge, and I let them know I had the knowledge, that's when Cranston was the clerk. Cranston was the one that withheld the paper. He held my documents. And I had a hearing in front of the Honorable Willie Wright. Baker, Barrington, his name was Barrington or Barrington Baker. He was supposed to be my public defender of record. He laid down. He didn't tell me nothing. He wasn't on record. Because when you go and they say, are you Paul Taylor? He's supposed to say, Your Honor, I'm Paul Taylor for representative of the public defender's office. And the state's attorney, which his name was DeRose, which he also withheld. They knew about it, my documents, because once you file, that's a legal document. They withheld legal documents and took away a First Amendment right. They took away a right to petition the court. I have a right to redress or a grievance or a wrong. And they took that clearly away from me.
So it sounds like, basically, as a young man, you may have made some mistakes, maybe have a record. But now as an older man, you are minding your own business. They choose to pick you up.
Right.
But because of a previous record, they basically...
They
criminalized.
Right, yeah. And they convict me before I even went through the procedure. And the Fifth Amendment says that you have a right to presume innocent until proven guilty, but I was presumed guilty and had to prove that I was innocent. And during that time of incarceration, before I get on the law library part, while I was in there, we had a hearing, and the judge realized they withheld it, but he said, you gotta have to tell your trial judge. I told Mrs. Brett Balmer, who is Mrs. Brett Morgan Balmer, refused for 2 years to file a motion to quash the arrest and suppress the evidence.
Now, did she just not get around to it? I mean, what was she overloaded? What's the situation with that?
For 2 years, a couple of verbal motions you put, but every time it came to it, something came up.
So were there continuances all the time?
She never visited me in 2 years. Only time I seen her was there. So every time the motion had to come to knock out the motion, she asked for a psych evaluation. The second one, psych evaluation, she went upstairs, and I believe she had a conversation with Dr. I don't know. I want this doctor so bad in my mind.
It'll come to you.
It will. This doctor upstairs, she had another psych eval, and he found me not fit to stand trial. And he just found me the same, and they sent me to the same doctor. They should. That's a prejudice there. That's bias to send me to a same doctor that, even though he found me not fit, it's almost though he's back in my face. So I got to find him. I mean, he found me fit. Now he's ready to find me not fit. Once he found me not fit, I went to I had a hearing, and during the hearing, I had a hearing for her to prove that I was fit. But how could she prove I'm fit when she wants me not fit? She wants me to take a plea for mentally ill and saying that I was guilty and mentally ill at the time. So when I came back from this, during the incarceration and down at Chester, they beat me repeatedly. If you raised your voice, they'll jump on you and attack you. Out of them doing something to you, because they yell at you all the time. Didn't I tell you to? And these white people, like you're a real slave. Pick that thing up, and boy, they're not like that. That's how they regularly talk to you over. These are mental ill people. They're abused.
So they're abused. There's verbal abuse. There's physical abuse, and there's nobody you can complain to, because if you complain, you get beat more.
Right, and they're not going to really take a mental ill person's word because he's mentally ill. He is incompetent to be a witness. So they got it mastered. They have this mastered the way the slave mind of the European that had the slave mind. And you got some good people. I don't want to go there, but the people who had that mind, for you to even call him master, to even put a chain on you and degrade you. When they beat me and I complain, I file grievance, they'll wait. But during that time, this is what bothers me the most. I finally went to the doctor and got my hernia fixed. During the time I got my hernia fixed, Scott still jumped me and tried to kick me for telling on him. He was kicking me in the hernia that I just had surgery a week ago.
Now, what is his name again? What is his name?
His name was Scott. They called him Scott. I don't know if Scott's last name, but we can address them by first name. Like, Scott, can I go to the bathroom or something? You know.
He's a.
I never forgot the face.
And he
was part of like a case worker.
So he's not an officer there. He's
a worker that they watch us over and they evaluate. Oh, he's like an evaluator. He got to be trained in mental health a little bit. So
he's not like a guard or anything. He's a clerk kind of person.
Yeah, they got a name for it, but he's a person that just literally like a babysitter that has a little training in mental health that he can evaluate and say, Paul's still aggressive. Paul's still, whatever. And he has to be the one to evaluate me after he beat me and then lay me on the table. No, after you get beat, no, you got to go to the table.
This is torture. And see, first you got to know that the 13th Amendment does not free the slaves. Right. It allows for slavery if you have been convicted of a crime and you are incarcerated. Right. So this is why we're seeing this kind of treatment of people who, as he said, still have that mindset of people that they want to be able to abuse. Yeah. So if you're somebody who is picked up, and if you, for any reason, resist, this could be you. This could be your story. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to find out where you are now with this case and what we need to do to make sure you get justice. We'll be right back in just a moment.
How long you been out here, Maurice?
About 5 to 6 months.
What led you to be out here?
Some of my family, man, they just treat me so wrong, they don't want to be bothered with me. Sometimes people are helping, sometimes, I have a hard way to go,
Do you have some place that you go at the end of the night when it starts getting real cold?
Sometimes. I might have to sleep in the hallway or something, I might have to sleep in the hallway or something,
And we're back. I'm here with Paul Taylor, who's telling his story, a nightmare that's probably more common than we'd like to believe. Now, you've been through all of this. Have you finally got your court date? And where are you exactly with this case now?
I'm litigating now on my own because I took a plea finally when I said I wasn't going to take a plea.
Now, how long had you been in behind bars before you decided to go ahead and take the plea?
It was 3 years and 10 months. And murderers that's a murderer time. A person who's accused of murder. There's a statute of limitation of about 3 years, I believe, 2 or 3 years for a residential burglary. It wasn't even a residential burglary. They broke it down to a theft. I never wanted to take a plea at all. But during the incarceration, everything that happened to me, from being stabbed by an inmate, I was cut by an inmate, I was beaten by Officer Travail, I was beaten by Officer Lopez and Juriski or something like that.
These are guards or police officers?
These are officers. I had fights with inmates where I was jumped on and fighting back. My finger was broke, literally this was broke in half. I had to adjust it and pop it back and denied medical attention. I was denied medical attention at one time when I was bleeding from whatever altercation from an officer or something. Literally sitting there bleeding when Officer Anthony, I remember this, in November, I believe it's 2007, 2006, I believe, Officer Anthony said, "Man, you get this man to medical. What is he doing in lockup? I'm behind a bar." The officer put me behind bars while I'm bleeding. No nurse, no medical attention for at least 2 hours. And he took me, Officer Anthony took me to medical on one of those issues doing there. And there was another time when I was locked up, incarcerated, where the officers inject me. The nurse and the officer told me to stand against the wall, and they inject me with a shot, say I was belligerent, because I disagreed with him about going lock up without putting on some deodorant. We was up in the mental health ward. But anything you do, they can use your mental health against you. But as you see me sitting here talking, what part of me seems crazy? I'm like any other person. If you keep putting your finger in my face, I'm gonna wave it, I'm gonna knock it down or say stop, or I'm gonna get agitated and say, or aggravated and say, look, I'm gonna yell, stop. But
so anytime you protest, then they say, oh, he's belligerent, he's showing that he's got a mental problem.
Aggressor. Stay back in your place. Get right back in your place. And they will always make it look like that shiny badge is doing right and you're always doing wrong. The system is designed for them to never to say they're wrong. They rather settle out of court. And the taxpayers pay later because they're going to raise something that next year. A lot of people don't know they raise county funds or county this or that because someone sued them.
Now, because you finally did agree to a plea, does that prevent you from filing a lawsuit? Or will they use that against you to keep you from filing a lawsuit?
Right. See, if I didn't file a lawsuit and I won in court, if she would have gave me my motion to quash arrest, she just saved the taxpayers' money. She was in there in the position to sell me out and to save them save the state money.
So the whole point was to not allow you to be able to sue because you were, in fact, mistreated.
So she has to go against the Sixth Amendment that guarantees me effective assistance of counsel.
So if you were to name all of the people at fault in this whole situation, who are the people that you would, if you could have them punished, who would be those people? What are their names? What are their positions? And what do they do?
Starting with, for breaking my foot, Officer Paul Lorenz on September the 5th, 2005. September 25th, 2005. And it would start with Officer Mills, the sheriff, who withheld, this, I forgot this in the story, he withheld me from going to see the judge to tell my story. I finally broke loose and said, Your Honor, can I please talk? They've been holding me back. He said, let him out. We had a hearing October the 28th, 2005. And during that investigation, during the time we was talking, the judge heard me out. After I finished and said, I had a right to come out here. I had a right under the First Amendment to speak, and I had a right under the Sixth Amendment to represent myself. He said, you did have that right. After I finished talking, that whole court shook their head and they stood up for me and they gave me a standing ovation.
So this happens if you can't make bail or something like that, then you just stay in lockup?
You stay in lockup, and the longer they keep you in there, the longer they keep you in there, the longer you will be in there until you see the court. Until you have your final trial day. And on my final trial day was January the 5th, 2009. That's when I went and took the plea. January 9th, 2009, I went to the joint.
So what exactly did you end up pleading guilty to?
A theft. 4 years for a theft, and they gave me 5 years. I already had 4 years in. I was supposed to dress in and dress out. They kept me in the joint 6 more months. So all 5 years, I maxed my time out without committing a crime or violating. So you only can max out if you violate. If you hit the street and violate. I maxed out and never violated. So I overdid my time. Under the Eighth Amendment, it's cruel and unusual punishment. And he extended my time. So I'm giving you an extended term. And then, while he was sentencing me, he said, is there anything you had to say? Because during the time, he said, anybody force you, anybody this and that? When I was getting ready to talk, he did this. The Judge Thomas V. Gaynor.
Don't say anything.
Don't say nothing. Now, you think I'm going to say something?
Because you could end up doing some more time.
He ain't sentenced me yet. I say something, I'm going to get 10 years on the theft. Because they're going to use they're going to double jeopardy. They're going to use the crime you did 20 years ago that you didn't get a chance to expunge from your record. They're going to use that against you and give you more time for the time you already on done. So I'm not going to say nothing. So now that I want the plea, and I had 30 days to uphold my plea, get my plea back. The person that I'm supposed to go to is the judge. The judge ain't going to give me my plea back, and he upheld it. So he's got to say he's wrong. He can be disbarred.
And say the name of the judge again.
Judge Thomas V. Gaynor Jr. Jr. He was in room, I believe, 302 in a 2650 California, room 302. Yeah, corruption in room 302. You better believe it.
Well, all right.
Book.
Well, none of us are free until all of us are free. And when we know there's corruption in the system, when we know that there are people who are being abused because they don't have a voice, we need to speak up, because it could happen to any one of us. It could be your son, your father, your brother, or it could be you.
There are people who choose to make a positive difference in the world. Our job is to bring you their stories to motivate you to do the same. Join us each week, host John Alexander and Naima Latif, as we bring you the educators, entertainers, elected officials, religious leaders, and community activists whose works are transforming this world. Find out how you can make a difference too. Be inspired. Watch The Media Connection.